The alien mercenaries, led by their confident leader Varric, had taken on many dangerous missions before. They were a tough crew, known for getting the job done no matter the risks. This new mission, however, seemed a bit strange. Their target was a small, distant planet rich in resources, but there was a problem. The planet had been marked as off-limits for centuries. No one knew why, and most of the galaxy respected the warning. But mercenaries like Varric and his crew didn't care much for warnings. As they approached the planet, the crew gathered in the command room of their sleek, heavily armed ship. The holographic display showed the planet, a blue and green sphere looking peaceful and inviting. It was hard to believe there could be any real danger down there. "We've landed on worse planets than this," one of the mercenaries, a tall alien named Krull, muttered with a smirk. He was the biggest and strongest of the crew, always eager for a fight. Varric stood at the front, his yellow eyes focused on the planet. "We follow the plan," he said in his deep, commanding voice. "We get in, take what we need, and get out. Nothing can stop us." The crew laughed, clearly not worried about the mission. They had fought against dangerous creatures and rival alien factions before. What could a small, unknown planet possibly throw at them? The ship entered the planet's atmosphere with ease. Outside the windows, thick forests and mountains came into view. The planet looked untouched, wild and free from civilization. There were no cities, no signs of life except for the thick trees and occasional animals running below. "Doesn't look so scary," Krull said, tightening the grip on his weapon. Piece of cake. The ship landed smoothly in a clearing surrounded by towering trees. The crew grabbed their weapons and prepared to exit the ship. Varric led the way, stepping out onto the soft ground, his boots sinking slightly into the earth. The air was fresh, but there was something strange about it. It felt too quiet, as if the entire planet was watching them. "Stay alert," Varric ordered. "Something doesn't feel right." The mercenaries spread out, securing the area around the ship. The trees were dense, casting long shadows over the ground. Birds flew overhead, their cries echoing in the still air. But aside from the wildlife, there was no movement. As the crew began setting up camp, Varric couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. He trusted his instincts, and right now they were screaming at him. This planet might look harmless, but something was off. Still, he couldn't show fear in front of his crew. Hours passed, and nothing happened. The mercenaries became more relaxed, joking and laughing as they set up their gear. They started scouting the area for resources, but there was no sign of any danger. Krull returned from a short patrol, grinning. "Nothing out there but trees and animals," he said. "This is going to be easier than I thought." Varric nodded, though he still felt uneasy. "Keep your guard up," he reminded them. "We don't know what we're dealing with yet." As night began to fall, the mercenaries sat around a small fire, eating their rations and sharing stories of their past missions. They felt confident, almost bored by the lack of action. Suddenly, a sound broke the quiet night. It was faint at first, like the rustling of leaves, but it grew louder. The mercenaries stood up, weapons in hand, scanning the darkness around them. "What was that?" Krull asked, his voice no longer cocky. The rustling grew closer, circling their camp. Varric's eyes narrowed as he raised his weapon. He could feel something watching them, but he couldn't see anything. The silence that followed was even more unsettling. Then, out of the shadows, a figure appeared. It moved too quickly for the mercenaries to react. One of their crew members fell to the ground with a sharp cry, taken out in an instant. Panic spread through the group as more figures emerged from the darkness, silent and deadly. Varric's heart pounded. This was no ordinary planet. They had made a terrible mistake. "Fall back!" he shouted, but it was too late. The humans had found them. The night was darker than Varric had expected. The fire crackled weakly, casting long, flickering shadows around the mercenaries' camp. Tension hung in the air. The attack had been sudden and swift. One of their crew members lay motionless, taken down before anyone could react. The mercenaries, who had once laughed and joked, were now on edge, their eyes darting toward every sound in the trees. Varric scanned the darkness, gripping his blaster tightly. He knew something was out there, something fast and dangerous. The shadows between the trees seemed alive, and every rustle of leaves sent a chill down his spine. "They came out of nowhere," Krull muttered, his voice low. The big alien's usual confidence was gone, replaced by fear. "I didn't even see them." Varric remained silent, his mind racing. Who were these attackers? And how had they struck so quickly? He had never seen anything like it. He had expected some resistance, maybe wildlife or primitive creatures. But these weren't animals. They were skilled fighters. "Everyone stay close," Varric ordered, his voice firm but tense. "We're not alone here." The mercenaries huddled together, forming a tight circle around the campfire. Their weapons were ready, but their confidence had crumbled. The alien crew, known for their brutal efficiency, now felt vulnerable. Minutes passed, but it felt like hours. The silence was unbearable. No one spoke, and the only sound was the crackling of the fire and the occasional breeze rustling through the trees. But then, just when it seemed like nothing else would happen, a shadow moved. "There!" shouted one of the mercenaries, pointing toward the trees. But before anyone could react, a figure darted forward, faster than the eye could track. Another mercenary fell, a sharp cry echoing through the night as they collapsed to the ground. Panic spread through the group. They fired their weapons into the darkness, but they hit nothing. The attackers were too quick, disappearing as soon as they appeared. "Fall back!" Varric shouted, trying to keep control. But there was no time to retreat. The humans, they had to be humans, were already among them, moving like ghosts through the trees. Their attacks were silent, precise, and deadly. Every time one of the mercenaries tried to fight back, they were met with nothing but empty air. "They're too fast!" Krull yelled, firing wildly into the forest. His massive size and strength meant nothing here. The humans didn't fight with brute force. They used stealth and speed, and the mercenaries couldn't keep up. Varric's mind raced. How could this be happening? The humans were supposed to be weak, unarmed, and outmatched. But these attackers, whoever they were, fought like trained soldiers. They knew the terrain, and they were using it to their advantage. Suddenly, a figure appeared right in front of Varric, barely a few feet away. It was a human, dressed in dark, tactical gear that blended with the shadows. The human's face was hidden behind a mask, but their eyes were visible, cold, focused, and determined. Varric raised his blaster, but the human was faster. In one fluid motion, the human knocked the weapon out of his hands and struck him in the chest. Varric staggered back, gasping for breath. The human moved to finish him off, but another mercenary fired at them, forcing the attacker to retreat into the darkness once again. Varric struggled to stand, his chest burning with pain. He had never seen anything like this. These humans weren't just survivors, they were warriors. Trained, efficient, and deadly. "They're picking us off one by one," another mercenary muttered, his voice shaking with fear. "We're not going to make it." Varric knew he was right. They had underestimated their enemy, and now they were paying the price. The humans had them surrounded, and they weren't going to let any of them leave this planet alive. "We need to get back to the ship," Varric said, his voice grim. "Now!" But even as he spoke, he knew it wouldn't be that easy. The humans weren't just attacking, they were playing with them, testing them. And Varric had a sinking feeling that this terrifying encounter was only the beginning. As the mercenaries began to retreat, they heard movement all around them. The humans weren't done yet. The shadows shifted, and once again, the deadly game began. The night was thick with fear as Varric and his crew stumbled through the dense forest, their hearts racing. They had barely escaped the humans who had attacked them, but they were far from safe. The shadows of the trees loomed overhead, and every sound made their skin crawl. They could feel the hunters closing in on them. "Keep moving!" Varric ordered, trying to maintain control. His mind was racing with thoughts of how they had underestimated the humans. What they thought would be a simple mission had turned into a nightmare. The mercenaries pushed through the underbrush, their weapons drawn but their spirits crushed. The forest was alive with noises, but the cries of creatures no longer felt comforting. It was as if the entire world was watching them, waiting for the next moment to strike. Krull, panting heavily, glanced back over his shoulder. "Are they following us?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "I don't know," Varric replied. "But we can't stop. We need to reach the ship." The thought of returning to their ship was the only thing keeping them going. If they could just get back to their vessel, they could escape this hellish planet. But as they pushed deeper into the woods, the feeling of being hunted grew stronger. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the trees, followed by a piercing scream. A mercenary named Jax stumbled and fell, clutching his leg, which was caught in a hidden trap. Panic spread through the group like wildfire. "Help him!" Krull shouted, rushing back toward Jax. But before they could reach him, another figure burst from the trees. Another human moving like a shadow. The human attacked with a swift kick, sending Krull crashing to the ground. "Get back!" Varric yelled, firing his weapon in desperation. The human dodged effortlessly, a look of fierce determination on their masked face. Varric's shots went wild, hitting trees instead of the agile attacker. "Leave me! Go!" Jax cried, his voice filled with pain and fear. The other mercenaries hesitated, caught between loyalty and survival. But they didn't have time to think. "Now!" Varric barked. "We can't save him. We have to keep moving." With heavy hearts, they left Jax behind, the sound of his cries fading into the night. Every step they took felt like a betrayal, but they knew they had to survive. As they ran, Varric led them deeper into the forest, but it was no use. The humans seemed to know every path, every hiding spot. They were trapped in a deadly game, and the mercenaries were the prey. More traps lay hidden in the underbrush. Varric's heart raced as another crew member, a young alien named Finn, cried out as he stumbled into a pit. The ground gave way beneath him, and he disappeared with a thud. Varric looked back, but there was no time to help him. "We need to regroup," Varric shouted, trying to keep the fear from his voice. The group had already lost too many. They needed to find a place to hide and plan their next move. They stumbled upon a clearing, a small, open space surrounded by trees. Varric signaled for the crew to stop. "Here, we can hide here for a moment," he said, trying to catch his breath. They crouched down, their hearts pounding. The sounds of the forest filled the air, rustling leaves, distant animal calls, and the ominous silence that followed. As they caught their breath, Varric's mind raced. He had to think of a way to escape. "We need to set a trap of our own," he said quietly, glancing at his crew. "If we can catch one of them, we might learn what they know." "But how?" Krull asked, still breathing heavily. "They're too fast, and we're already outnumbered. Maybe we can use the traps against them," Varric suggested, his eyes scanning the trees. "If we can lure them here, we might stand a chance." As they quietly discussed their plan, a chill ran through the air. The mercenaries could feel the presence of their enemies all around them. They were being hunted, and it wouldn't be long before the humans closed in for the final strike. Suddenly, a soft sound broke through the quiet, a light footstep nearby. Varric's heart raced as he signaled for silence. They all held their breath, waiting for the unknown figure to reveal itself. The night grew colder, and the feeling of dread deepened. The mercenaries were trapped, and the hunters were coming for them. The tension in the air felt heavy as Varric and his crew waited in the clearing. Every rustle of leaves sent shivers down their spines. The night was quiet now, but Varric knew it wouldn't last. They were in enemy territory, and the humans were hunting them like animals. "Stay alert," Varric whispered, his voice barely above a breath. They could be anywhere. Krull gripped his weapon tightly, his eyes darting around the dark forest. "Why are they doing this?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Why are they attacking us like this?" Varric didn't have an answer. He had always thought of humans as weak and primitive, but this experience had shattered that belief. These humans were skilled, organized, and they fought with purpose. They were nothing like the creatures he had imagined. As they prepared their trap, Varric's mind raced. What could possibly drive them to defend their planet so fiercely? Were they protecting something, or were they just this ruthless? The thought puzzled him, but he had no time to dwell on it. The sound of movement in the bushes pulled him back to reality. A figure stepped into the clearing, but it was not what Varric expected. Instead of attacking, the human raised their hands, signaling peace. "Wait!" the human called, their voice calm but firm. "I just want to talk." Varric and the others were taken aback. The last thing they expected was a human wanting to negotiate. "Who are you?" Varric demanded, pointing his blaster at the newcomer. "I'm not here to fight," the human replied. "My name is Sarah. I'm part of a group that protects our planet."
"We're not your enemy."
"Then why attack us?" Krull shouted, his anger rising. "You've already killed our crew." Sarah sighed, her expression pained. "We thought you were a threat. We didn't know you were mercenaries sent to capture or destroy us. Our people have been fighting for survival against raiders and invaders for years. We were only trying to protect ourselves." Varric exchanged glances with his crew. They had seen so much violence already. Was this human telling the truth? "Why not just talk to us from the beginning?" he asked, lowering his weapon slightly. "We didn't know what you were capable of," Sarah explained. "We've learned the hard way that not all visitors come in peace. You must understand, trust is hard to come by here. Then how do we know you're not leading us into a trap? Varric asked, his voice cautious. Because if I wanted to, I could have attacked you just now. But I didn't, Sarah said, her eyes pleading. Please, let me help you. We can work together. You don't have to be hunted like this. For a moment, the clearing fell silent. Varric weighed his options. He had seen his crew dwindle in numbers, and there was a chance to end this conflict without more bloodshed. He could feel the weariness in the air. They needed a way out. Okay, Varric finally said, taking a deep breath. But if you betray us, I swear— I won't, Sarah interrupted, sincerity in her voice. I promise. Let's get you to safety. With cautious steps, Varric motioned for his crew to lower their weapons. They had little choice. The humans had the advantage, but perhaps this was a chance for them to escape the chaos. Follow me, Sarah said, glancing nervously around the clearing. We need to move quickly before the others come back. As they moved through the woods, Sarah led them deeper into the forest, away from the open spaces. There's a safe place nearby, she explained. It's hidden from view. You'll be safe there for now. Varric nodded, trusting the humans' instincts. The forest felt alive around them, and he could sense the danger still lingering. The atmosphere was tense, and the shadows seemed to close in. As they traveled, Sarah shared stories of her people and their struggles. We've had to fight for our survival, she explained. Years of conflict have made us wary. We've learned that anyone could be a threat. Do you really think we would attack your planet? Varric asked, his tone softer now. We didn't come here for conflict. We were just looking for work. Sarah stopped and turned to him, her eyes filled with understanding. That's what we all thought at one point. But when you see your friends and family hurt or taken, it changes everything. It makes you act first and think later. Varric felt a pang of regret for the mercenaries lost. Maybe they were not so different after all. Perhaps fear had driven them all to this point. Let's end this, Varric said, determination in his voice. If we work together, we can find a way to protect both our people. With a small smile, Sarah nodded. Yes, together we can find a solution. Let's prove that not all outsiders are enemies. As they moved deeper into the forest, the first rays of dawn began to peek through the trees, illuminating their path. A new alliance was forming, and with it, the hope for peace. But danger still lurked in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. The sun was just rising over the horizon, casting a warm glow through the trees. Varric and Sarah, along with the remaining mercenaries, took shelter in a small cave hidden behind a thicket of bushes. They had formed an uneasy alliance, but trust was still fragile. As they prepared for their final stand, the reality of their situation weighed heavily on them. We need a plan, Varric said, pacing back and forth. We know the humans will come for us again. They won't let us go so easily. Sarah nodded, her expression serious. We need to warn my people. If we can reach the village, we can gather more support. Together, we can face whoever is attacking us. The remaining mercenaries exchanged glances, still uncertain. Krull spoke up, his voice shaky. What if they don't believe us? What if they think we're just trying to trick them? Varric stepped forward, trying to reassure his crew. We have no choice. We can't fight this alone, and we can't keep running. If we want to survive, we need to unite. Reluctantly, the mercenaries agreed. The group gathered their gear and prepared to move out. With Sarah leading the way, they navigated through the dense forest. Every step felt like a tightrope walk between danger and hope. As they approached the village, Varric's heart raced. The memories of their previous encounters with the humans played over and over in his mind. Would they trust them, or would they see them as a threat? When they finally reached the village, the tension was palpable. Villagers watched them with suspicion, weapons at the ready. Sarah raised her hands to show she meant no harm. Please, listen to me, she called out. We need your help. There's a greater danger coming! An elder stepped forward, a wise but cautious look in his eyes. You bring mercenaries into our home. Why should we trust you? Because they're not our enemies, Sarah pleaded. They are here to help us. We are all in danger from those who want to invade our planet. The elder hesitated, glancing at Varric and the others. What proof do you have? Varric stepped forward, desperation in his voice. We've seen the strength of your people. We've fought against the invaders and survived. If we join forces, we can protect our home. Slowly, the villagers began to lower their weapons, murmurs of uncertainty filling the air. The elder's gaze softened, realizing the sincerity in Varric's eyes. Very well. If you stand with us, we will fight together. But know this. If you betray us, you will regret it. With that, the villagers armed themselves, preparing for the fight ahead. They quickly devised a plan, using the villagers' knowledge of the land and the mercenaries' combat experience. They set traps, fortified defenses, and prepared to make their stand. As the sun climbed higher, the sound of approaching footsteps filled the air. Varric's heart raced again. The invaders were here. They could see dark figures moving through the trees, armed and ready for battle. "Get into position!" Varric shouted, adrenaline surging through him. "Remember our plan!" The villagers and mercenaries moved in unison, readying themselves for the fight. As the first wave of invaders broke through the trees, they were met with a wall of determination. The battle erupted. Blasters fired, arrows flew, and the sound of clashing weapons echoed through the forest. Varric fought alongside Sarah, their alliance forged in the heat of battle. He felt the adrenaline course through him as he dodged enemy fire, returning fire with precision. "Together!" Sarah shouted, rallying both mercenaries and villagers. "We can't back down now!" Varric could see the invaders faltering, their confidence shaken by the united front they faced. They were outnumbered, but their resolve was stronger. The humans were not the weak, defenseless creatures they had assumed. They were fierce fighters, ready to defend their home. As the battle raged on, Varric noticed a larger figure in the back, a leader of the invaders, barking orders to the troops. This was their chance. If they could take out the leader, they could turn the tide of the battle. "Follow me!" Varric shouted to Sarah. "We need to take him down!" They dashed through the chaos, dodging blasts and fallen debris. Varric's heart raced as they approached the enemy leader, a towering figure with armor that glinted in the sunlight. With a swift motion, they both charged, aiming to strike. But the leader was ready. He swung his weapon, forcing Varric and Sarah to leap back just in time. "Fools!" he snarled, his voice booming. "You think you can defeat me?" "We will fight for our home!" Varric shouted, gathering his strength. With a fierce battle cry, they launched themselves at the leader again, determined to show that they would not back down. This was their final stand, and they would fight until the very end. The fight for their survival was just beginning, but they stood together. Mercenaries and villagers united against a common enemy.